Mel, we are so excited to chat with you today about all things The Residents. The
Like,
Whodunit series is obviously filled with a great group of suspects. Your character, Bruce, quickly became a fan favorite, needless to say. So,
um,
walk us through how you first heard about this series and eventually booked the gig with Shonda Rhimes and team.
okay, so it came to me as a script, and I feel very fortunate that I've auditioned for years, so I'm not like trying to be a big shot, but I got an offer on this thing, and I knew it was Shonda, and I knew it was Paul William Davies, and I knew everybody that was involved because I was part of the casting process kind of later on, and so yeah, sight unseen, I'm in, and it's a no-brainer. Anything they do, I'm in. But I read the script and it was just amazing, and the way they were able to weave together, as you know, over 100 different characters and still give everybody
Remarkable.
their moments, it's just an amazing piece of writing. And yeah, I was thrilled to be a part of it.
Yeah, every episode you're like, what is going to happen? So I can imagine that reading the script must have been so fun as an actor.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
As a
When
fan,
you
you're like,
first
you
did
want to
it.
know. Oh yeah. And it was hard to keep a secret because you know who did it. And there were people on set
Yes.
that didn't know who done it, and
I was going to ask you, did you have any personal theories about who you thought was the murderer?
oh yeah, going in and you think
Okay.
this is the one, you know what I mean? And I had no idea. They totally fooled me. It's a good whodunit because I had no idea.
Did anyone from the cast guess correctly when you guys
Um,
like fully wrapped?
no, no. It's just so out of the
Really?
blue. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I don't know if that's giving away too much, you know what I mean? That it is so out of the blue. Um, yeah, no. I mean, because it could have been any of like 100 people, really, to some degree. I mean, that it's crazy. I was telling somebody like recent, like you are in the, you're in the hair and makeup, and usually they hang everybody's, their headshots up, and they didn't have room
Mhm.
for it in this thing because there were literally the cast list was 100 people long.
I will say I was. So
Oh my God.
and I love that so many more people are watching it.
Me
I've been
too.
telling all my friends to watch it. Even not only just the cast, but the set itself, I thought was so remarkable how they did that. Were there any hidden details or clues in like the layout or the design being on set that you can share with us that maybe viewers wouldn't pick up on?
No, I mean, look, here's the thing. They built the interior of the White House on like six different sound stages, and it was amazing. It was almost like this alternate reality because you go from Hollywood, you walk into this like door slash porthole, and then it's kind of a thing that kind of messes with your mind a little bit because you are suddenly in the White House. And no, they're really good about not giving away too many clues. I don't know. I'm sure there are going to be sleuths who see things laying around and stuff like that. But in reading the script, I didn't know where things were being placed. And I know Paul William Davies is a big fan of little clues and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So could be. There's a possibility. Yeah. But it's
Now,
entertaining. It's so, and you talked about, which is really cool, is that you enjoyed it. You know what I mean? And we all need a laugh right now. And
we
I
do.
think it's good for a laugh. And then there are also moments that are really heartfelt.
Yeah, and I do want to run down some of the full cast with you a little bit. I was a big Breaking fan and Better Call Saul fan, so I really love the connection of seeing both you and Giancarlo
Uh,
Esposito on screen together. That was awesome. So, what was that experience like? Not only working with him, but also Uzo as the incredible detective cop.
well, I'll start with Esposito, right? Giancarlo. It was a gift because I've loved his work for years, and not to date him, but since I was a kid. And so, learning that I was going to be able to work with him was just kind of a dream. And they say, you shouldn't meet your heroes, but like he lived up to every kind of expectation and want that I could have ever had. He's really inspiring. You know what I mean? Listen, I'm not going to say he's old or anything like that, but he's getting along in life. And he'd tell me these stories about how he was doing The Gentleman at the time. And he'd fly in from doing The Gentleman. And then he'd do press in Italy and New York, and then fly in, you know, and do a few scenes on The Residence. And he was always on. He was
Mhm.
always in a great mood and fun to be around. And, and when it came down to business, it was time for business, but he was just a pleasure to work with. And he exceeded any of my expectations, And then Uzo, I mean, what can you say? She's pretty terrific, right?
Yeah.
I
How could you
mean,
not break character too in some of those scenes when she's right up in your face?
well, I think the wonderful thing about it was, there was this the in the last thing, there's this she's going through as they do in Who Done It thing. She's going through the whole thing, the whole Scooby-Doo aspect of it. You know what I mean? Like, and then we blah blah blah. And it went on for 8 pages, and you don't notice 8 or 10 pages, and it's just her talking. And standing there watching her do this was just, a lot of us have backgrounds in the theater, and which is really cool because I think Paul William Davies and Shonda Rhimes really love actors, which is really cool. It's nice to work with people who love us, And they picked really solid people. I mean, it's kind of, you talk Randall Park and Jason
Mhm.
Lee, all these incredible Isaiah Whitlock. And so, you know, watching her was just this like, you got lost. You really got lost. And I think when you work with people of that caliber, it it moves you up. You have to step into that with them. And yeah, it was just a gift to work with her. I've always liked her stuff. I've liked her since Orange is the New Black, and I'm
Mhm.
really grateful that she's getting her turn right now. She deserves it. She
Me
really,
too.
yeah.
Me too. And there's been so many great things that people have been talking about on social media. And one of the things I thought was really fun was the element of bringing in the fake Hugh Jackman character. I have to ask you, is he aware? Has he been watching? Has he reached out to any of you guys?
No, he has not. But I think he is aware that he is in. He definitely is aware that he's in the show and was written into the show. But I thought that was part of the hilarity of it all. You know
So
what I
funny.
mean? I'm not going to give it away, but that he's in it and the things that happen with him, and yeah, there were all these ideas about what to do, and I'm really grateful they left it the way it was.
And
Yeah,
have you ever met him in real life?
I never have. No.
So I know that there is a scene where Elsie's character is talking to her daughter. She's like, "What would you say if he were at the state dinner?"
And then
So I
he
have to
shows up.
ask you, what
Yeah,
would you
yeah.
say to Mr. Jackman if you got the chance?
I love your work. You know what I mean? Um, he's great. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I usually you meet people that are very kind of grounded in their work, and you kind of get an idea through interviews and stuff like that. I'm sure he's a pretty decent guy. It just
For
comes across. It bleeds. Yeah.
Yeah, and one real celeb cameo that we did get was Kylie Minogue, who I'm
Yes.
also a fan of. How much fun was it having her on set? I'm assuming that she probably just blended so seamlessly with the rest of the cast.
So cool, so fun. She is, and she's awesome. And she sung the song that I love her for most, probably. And I don't know. I think all of us were a little fanned out with her, because we all have, I think, a moment in our lives where her kind of music corresponds to.
Something that a lot of fans can't stop talking about is the love story of Bruce and Elsie. It was so nice to see that dynamic on screen.
Thank you,
Talk to
Jeff.
us a little bit about working alongside your co-star, and did you bond right away? How did you get into
Oh my
character?
goodness. So I found out I was getting the role, and my manager knew her manager. And I had heard things about Juliet Restrepo, about how she was such a wonderful person and really sweet. And it turns out we lived about 10 minutes away from each other.
No way.
Got girls, and she just had a baby girl, and you know what I mean? And her husband's such a kind dude. And, all of us really got along. And so beforehand, we had an opportunity to kind of get to know each other. And, thank you for saying that because I really feel like this story is the heart of the show in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And what I loved about it was it wasn't this flashy, crazy love. It was this very sincere and grounded and real love, the way that it happens kind of in life, where you're at work and suddenly you notice someone for the first time, even though you've been working with them for 2, 3 years, and something shifts, and
Yeah.
you kind of get excited to go to work, and you do these little glances and looks, and you're both thinking about each other. And it was very real that way. And then I don't know, it just their love was really beautiful. And it's not kind of the typical people that you'd see falling in love in a
Right.
major.
A lot of people have brought that up. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was so attracted to that. I think what I love about Shonda Rhimes too is that I'm a big fan of 70s films
Hmm.
and TV. And people looked real, you know? People
Yeah.
looked real. I love like Serpico and Harold and Maude and, being there where people just look like people. And she has this real talent for picking people that just look like people and happen to be really good actors too. And I like that. I feel like we can relate to that, you know? There's nothing wrong with beautiful people, but we're not all beautiful, you know?
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
on the exterior, let's just say, you
I
know?
love that. And were you kind of surprised at all by how much fan love you guys received as those characters? Or I'm assuming too, when you read it in the script, maybe it also came across that way and that
The first thing is
was,
scary. It's always, you get offered a role, you didn't audition for it, and so your first day on set is going to be the audition. So that's kind of a little scary. But then I think as a person, you read this incredible work. And then there's this fear that are you going to be able to live up to it, you know? And as someone who's has to be the heart of the thing, are you going to be able to earn that, you know?
yeah,
And so, yeah, I think the first thing was fear, and then it was just this thing where I was just like, oh yeah, I mean, I gotta play this. I, I just feel so. It was, I just really honored, and the response from people was, it kind of blew me away. Because you do something, and then you work on it
never
for a
know how it's gonna
year.
go. Yep.
You never know how it's going to go. And then, it's 6 months to 8 months later, it's all ready to go. And you go to the premiere and you have no idea how it's going to be received. And you have no control over it, you know? And so when it is well received, it's such a nice thing, you know? Yeah. It's nice to
Well,
hear people say nice things about your stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of well received, so many people are already asking if there's going to be a season two. So, do you have any insight at all that you can share with us? Have there been
Listen, I,
conversations?
I have no like real insight. I
Yeah.
do know that there was like, here's what I will say. Like you said, it was a very well received show. And I think for the past month and a half, we've been the number one show that's been streamed.
Yeah.
I think over 2 billion something views. So I'm sure that the powers that be have had a conversation about that. Let's just say that, you know?
I think that's fair to say too.
Yeah.
So, if Bruce were to come back in season two, what would be your dream development for his character? Perhaps we get to see Bruce and Elsie maybe go to Italy. I don't
Oh,
know. I think that's what the fans want.
that would be beautiful. That would
Yeah.
be absolutely beautiful. And for to see their families come together because they're so, he really loves his son. She loves her daughter. It's the way that they bonded to some degree, and to kind of get into their lives a little bit would be kind of cool, like they did with her, which was so amazing with her daughter. That's
Agreed. And as I said in the beginning, so many more people are watching it as they continue to hear about the residents. And it's even receiving some Emmys buzz. So I need to ask you, what would the recognition mean to you personally as a cast and a potential win manifesting it?
that's
Just
a good
saying.
question. It would be sometimes these things, look, listen, to some degree, they're kind of attaboys or attagirls, these things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you work in an industry that you've been working in for 20, 30 years sometimes, and to be recognized that way would be huge, you know? Another thing we have absolutely no control over the outcome of, and so no expectations, but it would be a very, very, very nice surprise.